Have you ever watched a honeybee moving from flower to flower and wondered what it would be like to keep your own hive? Maybe you've imagined collecting fresh honey, helping local pollinators, or simply learning a skill that connects you more closely with nature. At first, beekeeping can seem intimidating. There are boxes, tools, protective suits, strange terms, and of course, thousands of buzzing insects. It feels like there's so much to learn that many people never even take the first step. But here's the truth that surprises almost every beginner. You don't need to know everything before you start. Every experienced beekeeper once stood exactly where you are today, wondering if they could actually do it. The difference is that they took one step at a time. By the end of this guide, you'll understand exactly how beginners can start beekeeping without feeling overwhelmed. We'll go through everything in the same order you should learn it, making the entire process simple and practical. The very first thing you need to understand isn't the equipment or the honey, it's the bees themselves. A beehive isn't just a box full of insects, it's a highly organized family where every bee has a specific job. Once you understand how this family works, everything else in beekeeping becomes much easier. At the center of every healthy colony is one queen. Many beginners think the queen rules the hive by giving orders, but that's not really what happens. Her primary job is to lay eggs. During the busiest part of the season, she can lay well over 1,000 eggs every single day. She is essentially the mother of the entire colony. Around her are thousands of worker bees. These are all females, and they are responsible for almost everything that happens inside and outside the hive. Some worker bees clean the hive, others feed the developing larvae. Some produce wax and build honeycomb, others guard the entrance. And when they're old enough, they become foragers, flying from flower to flower, collecting nectar, pollen, water, and tree resins. Then there are the drones, the male bees. Unlike the workers, drones don't collect nectar or build comb. Their purpose is much simpler. They exist to mate with a queen from another colony. If they succeed, their life ends immediately after mating. If they don't, many are forced out of the hive before winter because the colony can't afford to feed bees that aren't helping gather food. It may sound harsh, but every action inside a hive is about survival. Now let's talk about something that confuses a lot of beginners. People often say bees make honey because they love honey. That's only partly true. Honey isn't a luxury for bees. It's their winter pantry. When flowers are blooming, worker bees collect nectar. Nectar contains lots of water with a small amount of natural sugar. Back at the hive, thousands of bees work together to remove most of that water until the nectar becomes thick, concentrated honey. That honey is stored inside wax cells, ready for the months when flowers disappear. In other words, bees aren't making honey for us. They're making it to survive. The amazing thing is that a strong colony usually produces far more honey than it actually needs. That's what allows beekeepers to harvest the extra while leaving enough for the colony to thrive. Once you understand this, you'll begin thinking like a beekeeper instead of just someone collecting honey. Now, before you get excited and order your first hive, there's something important you need to consider. Can you safely keep bees? Most people are perfectly fine after a bee sting. You might experience some pain, redness, or swelling for a day or two. That's completely normal. But a small percentage of people have severe allergic reactions. If you've never been stung before, don't panic. It doesn't automatically mean you're allergic. However, if you've experienced symptoms like difficulty breathing, swelling in your throat, dizziness, or severe reactions after insect stings, you should talk to a medical professional before deciding to keep bees. Safety always comes first. The next question is surprisingly simple. Where are your bees going to live? Many beginners think they can place a hive anywhere in the yard. Not quite. A good hive location makes life easier for both you and your bees. Ideally, your hive should receive morning sunlight to help the colony become active early in the day. Some afternoon shade is helpful in very hot climates, although many colonies also thrive in full sun depending on local conditions. You'll also want a location with good drainage. Standing water around a hive creates unnecessary problems. Keep the entrance pointed away from busy sidewalks, patios, children's play areas, or neighbors whenever possible. Bees usually fly upward as they leave the hive, but giving them a clear flight path reduces unwanted encounters. Another thing many beginners overlook is food. A hive doesn't survive on one garden. Honeybees travel several miles searching for flowers. That means they rely on everything blooming within a large area around your home. If your neighborhood has flowering trees, gardens, parks, wildflowers, and natural spaces, your bees will likely have plenty to forage. If the surrounding area is mostly concrete or endless grass with very few flowering plants, food may become harder to find. This doesn't mean you can't keep bees in suburban or urban areas. Many cities actually support healthy colonies because homeowners plant flowers throughout the growing season. The important thing is to observe your surroundings before investing in equipment. Now, here's a mistake many beginners make. They spend weeks researching honey extractors, bottling equipment, labels, and jars. But they ignore the most important purchase of all: the hive itself. Fortunately, choosing a hive is much easier than the internet makes it seem. There are several different hive styles around the world, but if you're just starting, the smartest choice is usually whatever is most common where you live. Why? Because local beekeepers, clubs, and suppliers all use similar equipment. If you ever need replacement parts or advice, everything becomes much easier. The most popular design is the Langstroth hive. It has been used successfully for over a century, and there's a good reason for that. Every part has a purpose. The hive stand lifts everything off the ground, protecting it from moisture while making inspections easier. The bottom board forms the floor. Then come the brood boxes, where the queen lays eggs and young bees develop. Inside each box are removable frames. The bees build their comb on these frames, allowing the beekeeper to inspect the colony without destroying the nest. Later, when the colony grows stronger, additional boxes called honey supers are added on top. This is where the bees store most of the surplus honey you'll eventually harvest. Finally, an inner cover and outer cover protect the colony from weather while helping regulate temperature inside the hive. When beginners first see all these pieces stacked together, it can look complicated. But once you've assembled one hive, it becomes surprisingly straightforward. Think of it like building furniture. The first one takes time. The second one feels easy. Besides the hive, you'll also need a few basic tools. One of the most important is the hive tool. It may not look impressive, but you'll use it almost every single time you inspect your bees. Bees naturally glue everything together using a sticky substance called propolis, and the hive tool helps separate boxes and lift frames without damaging them. You'll also need a veil or protective suit. Even calm colonies can become defensive on certain days. Most experienced beekeepers have stories about unexpected stings, and protecting your face should always be a priority. Gloves are another personal choice. Some experienced beekeepers eventually stop wearing them because they prefer greater control while handling frames. But for beginners, gloves often provide valuable confidence. If wearing gloves helps you stay calm around your bees, then wear them. Confidence matters. Another essential tool is the smoker. Many people believe smoke somehow puts bees to sleep. That's actually a misconception. Smoke interferes with the alarm signals bees use to communicate danger. When those signals are disrupted, the colony is less likely to become defensive during an inspection. Used correctly, a smoker makes inspections calmer for both the beekeeper and the bees. At this point, you might be thinking this sounds like a lot to remember, and that's perfectly normal. Every beginner feels that way. The secret isn't trying to memorize everything in one weekend. It's learning one piece at a time, then adding the next. In fact, here's something I'd love to know. If you're thinking about starting beekeeping, tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what's inspiring you to begin. Is it the fresh honey, helping pollinators, starting a small business, or simply learning a fascinating new hobby? I'd genuinely love to hear your reason. The journey is only getting started, and in the next part, we'll cover how to choose your first bees, avoid the biggest beginner mistakes, set up your hive correctly, and prepare your colony for its first successful season. Now that you understand how a colony works and what basic equipment you'll need, it's time for one of the biggest decisions every beginner faces. How do you actually get your bees? This is where many new beekeepers become overwhelmed because they discover there isn't just one way to start. They hear terms like packages, nucleus colonies, swarms, local queens, imported queens, Italian bees, carniolan bees, Russian bees, and suddenly something that seems simple becomes confusing. The good news is that your first decision is actually much easier than people make it sound. For most beginners, there are only two realistic options. The first is buying what's called a nucleus colony, often shortened to a nuc. Think of a nuc as a small, already functioning beehive. Instead of receiving thousands of loose bees, you're getting a small colony that already has a laying queen, brood in different stages of development, stored honey, pollen, and worker bees that already know how to work together. It's like moving a family into a bigger house. Because the colony is already organized, it usually grows much faster once it's transferred into your full-sized hive. The second option is buying a package of bees. A package usually contains several thousand worker bees and a queen that is kept inside a small cage. Unlike a nuc, these bees don't already have a home together. After installing them into the hive, the workers must accept the queen, begin building comb, start raising young bees, and slowly develop into a full colony. Packages are usually less expensive. Nucs usually develop faster. If both options are available, and the price difference isn't a major concern, many experienced beekeepers recommend starting with a nuc because it removes several early challenges that beginners often struggle with. Another question beginners constantly ask is this: what breed of honeybee should I buy? The truth is, this decision matters far less than most people think. Italian bees are popular because they're productive and generally gentle. Carniolan bees are known for building up quickly in spring. Russian bees have developed certain traits that may help them deal with mites under some conditions. But here's something many beginners don't realize. Unless you're buying from a specialized breeder, your bees will likely mate naturally with drones from many nearby colonies. That means the genetics become mixed very quickly. Instead of worrying about finding the perfect breed, focus on buying healthy bees from a trusted local supplier. Healthy bees matter far more than chasing the perfect genetics. Speaking of local suppliers, here's one piece of advice that can save you disappointment. Whenever possible, buy your bees locally. Local bees are already adapted to your climate, your flowering seasons, and your weather patterns. They've survived where you live. That gives them an advantage from the very beginning. Now, let's talk about timing. A surprising number of beginners wait until spring arrives before they start shopping for bees. Unfortunately, that's usually too late. Good suppliers often sell out months in advance. Many experienced beekeepers reserve their colonies during winter for pickup in early spring. Planning ahead gives you more choices and avoids unnecessary stress. Once you've brought your bees home, it's time for one of the most exciting moments in your beekeeping journey: installing your first colony. Believe it or not, this is the moment that makes many beginners the most nervous. Thousands of bees, a brand new hive, protective clothing, a smoker. Everything suddenly feels very real. Here's the important thing to remember. Your bees are much more interested in building their new home than chasing you around the yard. If you stay calm, move slowly, and avoid sudden movements, the entire process is usually much smoother than people expect. Bees respond to rough handling. Gentle movements create calmer inspections. Once your colony is installed, many beginners think the hard part is over. Actually, this is when your real job begins. Contrary to popular belief, a beekeeper isn't simply someone who collects honey. A beekeeper is a caretaker. Your responsibility is to help the colony succeed while interfering as little as necessary. That starts with regular inspections. Notice the word regular, not daily, not every few months, regular. Especially during your first season, inspecting every 7 to 10 days during active growth gives you a good understanding of what's happening inside the hive. Each inspection has a purpose. You're checking whether the queen is laying eggs. You're looking for healthy brood. You're making sure the colony has enough food. You're watching for pests and diseases. And you're determining whether the bees need more space. At first, every frame may look identical. Don't worry. Almost every beginner experiences this. The more often you inspect, the easier it becomes to recognize patterns. Soon you'll instantly notice eggs, larvae, capped brood, pollen, nectar, and honey without even thinking about it. Let's talk about one of the biggest reasons colonies fail: Varroa mites. If you've been researching beekeeping online, you've probably heard this name many times. That's because these tiny parasites have become one of the greatest challenges facing modern beekeepers. Varroa mites attach themselves to bees and reproduce inside developing brood. As their numbers increase, they weaken the colony and spread harmful viruses. Many beginners assume they'll easily notice mites crawling around. Unfortunately, that's rarely the case. By the time a colony visibly appears sick, mite populations are often already dangerously high. That's why successful beekeepers don't guess. They monitor. Regular mite testing allows you to understand when treatment is actually necessary instead of waiting until serious damage has already occurred. Ignoring mites is one of the fastest ways for a promising first colony to collapse. Now let's move to another important responsibility: managing space. Imagine living in a small apartment designed for 2 people. Now imagine 20 people trying to live there. Eventually, someone is going to leave. The same thing happens inside a hive. As spring progresses, the colony grows rapidly. Thousands of new bees emerge every week. If they run out of room, the colony may decide to swarm. Swarming is completely natural. The old queen leaves with thousands of workers to start a new colony somewhere else. While fascinating, it's usually disappointing for beginners because suddenly half their bees disappear. One of the easiest ways to reduce this risk is by giving the colony additional space before it becomes overcrowded. Adding another box at the right time allows the colony to continue expanding instead of preparing to leave. Food management is another area where beginners often become confused. People sometimes believe bees should always have plenty of honey. Usually that's true, but there are periods when flowers simply aren't producing enough nectar. Early spring can be difficult. Long periods of rain can reduce foraging. Late summer may also bring nectar shortages depending on your location. During these times, beekeepers sometimes provide sugar syrup to help colonies continue developing. This isn't replacing honey forever. It's temporary support during periods when natural food is limited. The goal is always to help the colony become self-sufficient once flowers become abundant again. Water is equally important. Bees need water every single day. If you don't provide a nearby source, they'll simply find one themselves. Unfortunately, that might be your neighbor's swimming pool, bird bath, or dripping faucet. A shallow water source with stones or floating corks gives bees a safe place to land while drinking. It's a small detail that can prevent many future problems. Now let's discuss something every beginner secretly worries about: getting stung. Here's the reality. If you keep bees long enough, you'll eventually get stung. Even experienced beekeepers receive occasional stings. The goal isn't to eliminate every sting. It's to understand why they happen. Most stings occur because a bee feels trapped. Maybe your hand accidentally squeezed one between two frames. Maybe you moved too quickly. Maybe the weather wasn't ideal for inspections. Maybe the colony was already stressed. Learning to read bee behavior dramatically reduces unnecessary stings. Calm bees move steadily across the comb. Defensive bees become louder. They may begin flying directly toward your veil. Some may bump into you before actually stinging. Those are signals. Experienced beekeepers recognize them early and adjust their approach. Sometimes the smartest decision is simply closing the hive and returning another day. One lesson every beginner eventually learns is that the bees set the schedule, not us. You also don't need to inspect the hive just because you're excited. Opening the hive too frequently disrupts the colony. Every inspection should have a purpose. Go in, check what you need, close it back up. Respecting the bees' time often leads to healthier colonies. As your confidence grows, something remarkable begins to happen. The buzzing that once sounded intimidating starts sounding familiar. Instead of seeing thousands of individual insects, you begin seeing one organized superorganism working together with incredible efficiency. You'll notice foragers returning with bright yellow pollen baskets. You'll recognize newly emerged bees with their fuzzy appearance. You'll even begin identifying the queen more quickly than you ever imagined possible. That transformation from nervous beginner to confident observer is one of the most rewarding parts of beekeeping. And the best part? You're still only getting started, because in the final part, we'll cover harvesting honey the right way, preparing your bees for winter, avoiding the biggest mistakes first-year beekeepers make, and the habits that separate successful beekeepers from those who lose their colonies after their very first season. By now, you've learned how a honeybee colony works, how to choose your first hive, where to place it, what equipment you'll need, how to install your bees, and how to care for them during their first season. At this point, you might be wondering when the reward finally comes. After all, when most people picture beekeeping, they're imagining jars of golden honey sitting on a kitchen shelf. But here's something every beginner should understand. Your first goal is not harvesting honey. Your first goal is building a healthy colony. If your bees are thriving, they'll reward you with honey for years. If you rush to harvest too much too soon, you risk weakening the very colony you're trying to grow. Patience is one of the greatest skills a beekeeper can develop. Let's talk about when it's actually time to harvest. A common mistake beginners make is assuming that if they see honey inside the hive, it's ready to collect. Not necessarily. Bees store nectar first, and that nectar contains a lot of water. As they fan their wings, they slowly remove moisture until it becomes true honey. Once it's ready, they seal each cell with a thin layer of wax. Those white wax caps are one of the best signs that the honey has reached the proper moisture level. If too many cells are still open, the honey may contain too much water and can ferment after harvesting. That's why experienced beekeepers usually wait until most of the honeycomb has been capped before collecting it. But even then, there's another question. How much honey should you take? The answer is simple. Only take the surplus. Remember, honey is the bees' food. They worked incredibly hard to collect nectar from millions of flowers. During winter, those stored reserves become their lifeline. A responsible beekeeper never empties the pantry. Instead, they leave enough food for the colony to survive until flowers begin blooming again. Exactly how much honey a colony needs depends on where you live. Long, cold winters require much larger food reserves than warm climates where bees can forage during much of the year. That's another reason joining a local beekeeping club can be incredibly valuable. Local beekeepers understand the conditions in your specific area and can recommend how much honey should remain in the hive before winter. Once you've harvested your honey, the excitement really begins. Fresh honey is unlike most store-bought honey. Its color depends on the flowers your bees visited. Some honey is almost clear. Some is deep amber. Some has floral notes. Others have rich caramel flavors. No two harvests are exactly alike. That's one of the things that makes beekeeping so rewarding. Your bees create something unique every season. Now let's move into one of the most important times of the year, preparing for winter. Many beginners believe bees simply hibernate during cold weather. Actually, they don't. Instead, they form a tight cluster around the queen. The worker bees continuously vibrate their flight muscles to generate heat, keeping the center of the cluster warm enough for the colony to survive, even when temperatures outside drop far below freezing. It's an incredible example of teamwork, but they can only produce that heat if they have enough food. That's why fall inspections are so important. Before winter arrives, check that the colony has adequate honey stores. If food is running low, you may need to provide supplemental feeding before cold weather prevents the bees from processing syrup. During winter itself, resist the temptation to constantly open the hive. Every unnecessary inspection releases valuable heat. Most of the time, the best thing you can do is simply leave the colony alone, while occasionally checking from the outside that everything looks secure. Another thing to watch for is moisture. Many beginners focus only on keeping bees warm. Surprisingly, moisture can become an even bigger problem than cold temperatures. Warm air inside the hive naturally rises. If that warm, humid air condenses and drips back down onto the clustered bees, it can chill them and create dangerous conditions. Good ventilation helps reduce this problem while still allowing the colony to stay warm. As winter slowly comes to an end, another exciting season begins. Spring. This is when you'll discover whether your colony successfully made it through winter. Few moments are as satisfying as seeing your bees flying again on the first warm day of spring. For many beekeepers, it never gets old. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough. Mistakes. Every beekeeper makes them. Every single one. Some forget to replace a hive cover correctly. Some accidentally roll the queen while handling frames. Some harvest too much honey. Others wait too long to treat for mites. Even experienced beekeepers continue learning every season. The difference is that successful beekeepers don't allow mistakes to discourage them. Instead, they treat every problem as another lesson. If something goes wrong with your first colony, don't immediately assume you're a bad beekeeper. Sometimes weather creates challenges. Sometimes nectar flows fail. Sometimes queens naturally need replacing. Sometimes colonies simply struggle despite your best efforts. Nature doesn't always follow our plans. That's perfectly normal. One of the best habits you can develop is keeping simple records. Write down the date of every inspection. Record whether you saw eggs. Note how much brood was present. Write down mite test results. Keep track of feeding. Record queen observations. At first, this may seem unnecessary, but months later, those notes become incredibly valuable. Instead of trying to remember what happened 6 weeks ago, you'll have the answer right in front of you. Another excellent habit is learning from other beekeepers. Books are wonderful. Videos are helpful, but nothing replaces real conversations with people who have managed bees through many seasons. Most experienced beekeepers enjoy helping beginners because someone once helped them too. Don't be afraid to ask questions. In fact, asking questions early often prevents much bigger problems later. As your confidence grows, you may even decide to expand. Many beekeepers begin with one hive. The following year, they add another, then another. Before long, what started as a simple curiosity has become a backyard apiary. Some eventually sell local honey. Others produce beeswax candles. Some raise queens. Others simply enjoy spending quiet afternoons watching thousands of bees carrying pollen back to the hive. There's no single right way to enjoy beekeeping. You get to decide what success looks like. For some people, success means harvesting dozens of jars of honey every year. For others, success means helping pollinators and seeing more flowers bloom around their home. Some simply enjoy slowing down. Standing quietly beside a hive teaches patience in a way few hobbies can. You'll begin noticing things most people never see. The different colors of pollen coming into the hive, the scent of fresh beeswax, the sound of thousands of wings working together, the first young bees emerging in spring, the steady rhythm of nature unfolding season after season. It's remarkable how quickly fear turns into fascination. The buzzing that once made you nervous becomes familiar. The hive that once looked mysterious begins making perfect sense. And one day, without even realizing it, someone else will ask you how to start beekeeping. You'll smile because you'll remember standing exactly where they are now, unsure, curious, excited, wondering whether you could really do it. The answer, of course, is yes. Not because beekeeping is always easy. It isn't. There will be setbacks. There will be challenges. You'll continue learning every single season. But that's part of what makes it such a rewarding hobby. No 2 years are ever exactly the same. The bees are constantly teaching you something new. So if you've been waiting for the perfect moment to begin, don't wait until you know absolutely everything. Start learning. Find a local mentor. Choose your equipment carefully. Order healthy bees. Take your time. Observe more than you interfere. Respect the colony. Keep learning with every inspection. Most importantly, enjoy the journey. Because beekeeping isn't only about collecting honey. It's about understanding one of nature's most extraordinary communities and becoming a small part of its story. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this guide helpful and you're serious about starting your own beekeeping journey, let me know in the comments what step you're most excited about or what questions you still have. I'd love to hear from you and help however I can. And if you enjoyed this guide, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next beekeeping guide. Until next time, take care, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next video.